start with a plant-based diet. So a plant-based diet, by definition, you can't have any animal protein. So all of a sudden, you're doing away with the best form of amino acid.
This statement is technically correct, but I think it requires some caveating. The digestibility of protein from plants is typically lower than from animals. Additionally, the different ratios of amino acids in plants are typically inferior to that of animals, and many plant proteins are deficient in one or more amino acids. However, this deficiency is typically only relevant if you are literally only eating one food for the rest of your life, because different protein sources have different amino acid ratios, and typically what you don't get in one source you will make up in another. The poor bioavailability is typically due to anti-nutritional factors that can inhibit protein digestion, as well as its high concentration of fiber, which can bind to the amino acids and make them less easily digestible. We established that on paper, plant protein is typically considered inferior to animal protein, and on a gram per gram basis, plant protein, including soy protein, is inferior to a higher quality animal protein such as whey. However, probably the most important caveat here is that both of these scenarios are giving 20 grams of protein. And because of the poorer amino acid quality and digestibility of protein from soy protein and other plant proteins, on a gram per gram basis at a low level of protein consumption, it does appear that whey protein is superior. However, this trial was extremely important. They attempted to match the leucine content of whey and soy protein supplements, which meant they had to give 26 grams of soy compared to 19 grams of whey, which both would give 2 grams of the amino acid leucine, which appears to be one of, if not the most important amino acids for stimulating muscle protein synthesis. And they found that if you match for leucine contents by giving slightly higher amounts of soy protein, it is comparable to whey protein when it comes to strength and muscle protein synthesis. And this is supported by a large meta-analysis indicating that animal proteins were not superior to plant proteins, given that total daily protein intake was sufficient. However, there is a slight caveat, as it appears the animal protein supported a higher percentage of lean mass gain and a lower percentage of fat mass gain, meaning that on average for every pound of muscle you gain, you would gain less percentage body fat consuming the protein from animal sources rather than from plant sources. However, this is typically down to the fact that plant sources come with other macronutrients, including fats and carbohydrates, that may simply cause you to end up in a higher caloric excess. So at the end of the day, if you give sufficient quantities of plant proteins compared to animal proteins, which typically means giving higher gram per gram amounts, plant proteins can be just as effective as animal proteins when it comes to stimulating muscle protein synthesis and increasing strength and muscle mass. However, there is one last caveat, as many governing bodies indicate that our daily recommended intake for protein may need to be increased for those consuming all of their protein from plant-based sources to adjust for their poor bioavailability and poorer quality. So essentially, what you can do on 100 grams of animal protein might take 120 grams of plant protein to get comparable results. But it does appear that what plant proteins lack in quality can be made up through quantity.